Pinky and the Brain, Issue 11. Brain sings, showing rare vanity, and Pinky is excited to get a package he ordered. A pillow book of magical spells. As Brain seems to prepare for a date, Pinky says he ordered the sparkling wand from the at-home shopping network. He hopes that it'll help him take over the world, which makes me curious. It's a cartoon, so it could be possible that it has real magic from an irresponsible witch and no one discovered it because they didn't believe in it. Brain says he'll be spending the evening with someone he finds to be beautiful, with no one lampshading that she has a name that sounds like a guy's name every time it's said. She seems to be another anthro mouse. She'd have to be made in an Acme lab or by a witch then. She's finally accepted the date invitation. She must just be desperate if she took so long. He says he'll take her to a restaurant. He's holding a totally not Visa card, which he must have stole. How could someone who's legally not an acknowledged person apply for one for himself? Pinky complains like a wife that Brain never takes him anywhere nice, and all he does is slave over a hot exercise wheel 40 hours a day. He's exaggerating there. He barely ever does that. Brain tells him he'll bring him a corn dog, which is nice if he'll remember, and tells him to mop up the cage if he wants to be useful, when he's already upset with him, and he cheers up, asking for extra relish, and happily mops with water that's on the floor for some reason. Brain really is lucky to have such an optimistic, consistently loyal sidekick. He could easily be too jealous and resentful of the fact that Brain's going on a date somewhere nice with someone else to want to take over the world for him. I was about to look forward to another creative and silly plan of his, but instead he has the smart idea to save time and effort using a plan Brain wrote down. It never occurred to me that he wrote down his plans before telling them to Pinky, because that'd be unnecessary effort, as would numbering all of the plans. He'd have to look back at the last one to remember its number every time. It'd be interesting to see Pinky try a plan alone without Brain boring me by talking too much in a serious tone. The next plan is to move all of the water in the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic, causing Earth to tilt to one side from its weight. That'd obviously kill everyone from the movement of the Earth throwing everything to the side. He's usually not even close to that dangerous, so he wouldn't make this out-of-character suicidal plan because he's smart. The second step to the plan is to buy west-pointing compasses that wouldn't exist to make tons of money. Off no one. Why wouldn't the plan be to make the compasses? Pinky asks to order 1 billion west-pointing compasses from an Acme compass company. How is there an entire company dedicated to just compasses? How are there west-pointing compasses being produced by it? That would save him time to order them. Also, I guess he assumes he'll have money to pay for them all eventually because Brain can invent anything, and he has faith in him to take over the world. So that's why he took the shocking risk of ordering so many. Then he asks himself what to do next, implying there was a time skip. He says he'll put himself in Brain's frame of mind to figure out what to do, and calls himself an idiot in a clever way, rather than stupidly idolizing him. He smartly says that for him to take over the world would be nothing more than magic. It goes the predictable route after that. He does the usual running gag with a reflection of himself and reads out from a magic book. No one would write a chapter on how to move an ocean because that would kill everyone on the planet. Although if these same witches can reverse time, it makes sense as long as it's assumed that it'll be reversed anyways. So it's just a spell for someone to let off some steam. It doesn't matter what they do. Go figure the wand works. He realizes that the next steps involve moving water with a bucket an insane amount of times. That wouldn't be the case. It takes too long to be considered acceptable. Is the chapter written with the assumption that nobody would go through all that trouble? Then it wouldn't be written at all. He'd have better luck having a bucket move by itself than manually moving it. He'd get bored and quickly run out of magic. He vows to not let anything distract him until the job is done, and I can't blame him for watching TV 5 minutes later instead. He says that if he creates a partner, he could stay focused. It uses the fact that he's wearing a Fantasia-style hat because he makes a living, silent vacuum, and tells it to follow his lead and thinks about what to do while doing it. He finds out the vacuum is watching TV because it finds this too boring. Because he gave it free will. He put too much of himself in it. The book says that you can move the ocean in vast quantities. Then why did it even mention a bucket method? That must have been just a joke by the writer of the book. That explained the use of the made-up word instead of billion or something. Arbitrarily, the spell requires a bunch of ingredients, like a ballet slipper from the store of all things. And the book says to use the wand to find those items. So the ingredients are needed together because they're like sets of zeros and ones to form lines of code. He reads out a spell to instruct the wand to summon a door to where dancing cacti live. I assume the reason it won't just summon those things is they've got magic, so you can't summon new magic out of thin air. Why can't he just warp them all to him right away? I guess they're all immune to magic. How inconvenient. Pinky sees the crazy sight of a bunch of happy creatures skipping around, and lampshades the strange sight by saying that he had a dream like this when he had a fever of 110. Brain must have helped him survive that. He tells the people near him to Mambo, and then captures a baby dancing cactus in a bag, and reassures him nicely that he won't hurt him and just wants to borrow him. He couldn't exactly ask permission to use him to move an ocean. It's so smart of Pinky that he perfectly recites the spell to warp to the place with a giant lizard. I don't see why someone would need to say all of the words of a spell correctly. Is it also for the same reason that you have to make a line of code exactly right? Then it makes sense. He says magic is painful when it's really the needles of the cacti that hurt. And the baby cactus doesn't leave the bag, which is smarter than wasting time trying to leave it. He takes away a scale from a giant lizard and it screams and hits him. He again recites a spell perfectly to warp to a nice place where nothing bad happens to him. He has himself warped to dancing storks and some talking hippos on another planet are acting like ballerinas. Somehow, for no reason, Pinky's still in talking condition while under a hippo, and it's impressive that he can say a spell right after that. But at this point, he must be just making up the words of the spell himself, because he says, "broken bones of a mouse squashed flat." He asks to get taken to a big bat, and warps to Batman, even though we know he's not a bat, and takes his nose hair and survives to run away, leaving dust behind, like he was made to have super speed with science. I like that Batman just asks, "Now what was that all about?" He returns to the vacuum person. Then he takes him out of the well and says this won't do because he needs the well free, and the vacuum's bag is really full. So apparently, he did do stuff for him instead of just watching TV. Somehow. That wasn't foreshadowed. So this wouldn't happen. The vacuum falls over backwards from the weight of the bag and onto the well for out to Atlantic, when it could have very easily not fallen over onto that specific place. The well being plugged means that there's a flood in the lab. Pinky says Brain is coming over and sadly tells the book to forgive him for removing his tag. Brain comes home sadly saying that his date got ruined because Pinky charged 1 billion west-pointing compasses to his credit card and put it way above the limit. All Brain's fault for not specifying exactly how many compasses to buy in his written form of the plan, and for even writing down his plan, which he never does. So it seems unfair that his date went wrong because it could have easily not, and he didn't do anything wrong in this story. Billy said not to bother seeing her home. She either gets too mad about having to pay for something, or didn't bring any form of money on the date because she didn't know to. Brain's so sad about the date failing that he doesn't know what to do tomorrow. And Pinky whispers and instantly motivates him to try to take over the world anyways. It's nice of him to reassure him that that'll impress his date. The next story is going to be a Sherlock Holmes parody, instead of trying to be more original. So like with the previous story, I'm glad I never experienced the plot it's based on. Usually narrating text boxes are boring. Good thing they're from Pinky's perspective and he talks funny. He says he once made cotton candy out of cotton for Brain. It makes sense from someone really new to the world and uneducated. Pinky and the Brain are standing in a cage near Sherlock and his friend. Brain says he's noticed a trend to all of his plans. Pinky's right that they all fail. And it's funny because he's smiling and not too scared to say that. And Brain says so calmly, "That would be an obvious if health-endangering response, Pinky. He says he's discovered a mind behind the thwarting of his plans. No, not him. Or Pinky. Instead, Snowball. No, his plans failed for different reasons. This must be an alternate universe. Sherlock must not take him seriously because his plan to take over the world always fails. And that combined with him only caring about his own life would be why he's ignoring their conversation right in front of them. But why are they still in the same room as them when they'd have to hear each other over them? Not to mention it sure is lucky that they were able to convince them to buy them as pets. We didn't even see how they did it. Pinky says in confusion, "A yummy snack cake is against you?" And Brain uses a feather pen to unlock his cage confusingly easily, and actually agrees and says he needs to get to it before it begins plotting with someone else. And then he says he needs to get to Snowball before he'd take over the world, so he was just being sarcastic with Pinky, who would know Snowball's another person trying to do that. And he still threats because Brain's so much of a softie to even put him in a permanent state of sleep or cryogenically freeze him. I guess he's too busy thinking of world domination plans to think of that. But every second that Snowball's got his attention, he can't think of world domination. So he has no excuse for not thinking of a way to get rid of him as a threat. So every time I see Snowball, I'm too busy thinking about that to respect the concept of Snowball existing past his debut episode. Brain and Pinky jump on the back of Holmes' old cab. And Brain expects me to believe somehow that there's only one consulting detective in the world. Pinky makes a joke. The cab arrives somewhere, and they find Snowball effortlessly in the next page. Snowball reveals that he foiled one of Brains' evil plans, and a human grabs them and throws them. Wait, I just realized, wouldn't it make more sense for him to let him succeed so that he could follow him and then kill him and replace him? Because Brain would already have the world primed for one ruler ruling the whole planet, so it would just save Snowball a whole bunch of work. So Snowball's really stupid. He's just thinking that he wants to spite Brain. Somehow a cop doesn't believe someone about Snowball, even though his failed plans would have made him famous for all of the trouble they caused in word of mouth. Brain calls Sherlock Dumb Luck Holmes, and then turns around and figures out which country Snowball's apparently headed for just because he was drinking a type of drink flavored by Northern European rivers. Why would he think he was going to leave the country at all? That's like saying he's definitely going to China because he's eating Chinese food. I wish Brain explained what he meant by Dumb Luck Holmes, as in gave specific examples. We see Snowball on a train that just left with a human he either brainwashed or bribed. Pinky has a container of nails on a seesaw their size, and it's used to launch them. They get hurt by the container, and Pinky says at least they made it. And Brain insults him somehow for being able to find the bright side in things. Someone calls them stowaways, and when Brain tells him the truth, since it always gets people to stop taking him seriously, this time someone says, "Take over the world, will you?" And we see Brain and Pinky throwing coal into a fire. And Pinky says, "Maybe you shouldn't have told him about taking over the world, Brain. That seems to bother some people. Why did it take so long for someone to have the reaction we'd expect?" Sure, most people would have a reason to think these two could never succeed anyways and stop taking them seriously, because they're just small mice, so would be paranoid to think they could win. But they did almost win at some point. He has every reason to punish Brain for even wanting to, and you'd think they'd be punished often for telling the truth then. But since them being kept on the train at all caused them to end up catching up with Snowball after he left the train, it wasn't just a punishment. It was also to make sure they'd get to stop him. If he believed Brain about one thing, he'd believe him about Snowball as well. They walk 20 miles from the docks to a town in the snow without winter clothes on. Them surviving the cold for so long would only make sense if Brain altered their bodies for that. Like, put thermal nanobots in them to warm them up in seconds. They find Snowball's lodge, and since his servant is leaning on the chair with both arms and doesn't stop them while they talk in front of him, he has to be asleep. Soon a cat tries to attack them and knocks over the servant's chair, getting him to chase them up a tree. A tree branch rips off Pinky's pants as he tries to leave it. and they see Snowball going to a mountain cave. When Brain wonders what nefarious deed Snowball's about, I start to wonder if the twist is going to be that he's not up to anything evil at all. Snowball still is up to no good, which makes more sense than Brain having a line just for it to turn out that he's wrong. Snowball wants to use the treasure he and his crew found to take over the world. Snowball tells one of the humans to hold some of his clothes while he takes the risk of fighting Brain himself, because he hates him enough to want to. Pinky shows up to them and apologizes for taking so long as if they'd care. Snowball says he studied a martial art, and one of Snowball's minions humanizes himself trying to bet on who will win. Go figure, they end up falling off the cliff. But it turns out Brain survived and is holding onto a rock near a river with the current sending Snowball away. The story sure ended fast. The first story, by Jesse McCann, was about Pinky ordering a Fantasia-style wizard hat and wand and magic book. And I just have to assume that the reason it can exist is that an irresponsible witch sold it. So he uses that to try to help Brain take over the world while Brain's not there. So it's pretty interesting to see a story where it's just Pinky trying a plan. So he needs to find various objects like a dancing cactus, because that's the only way he can make an ocean move. Because he wants to follow Brain's ridiculously dangerous plan that he shouldn't think would actually get him in power. So he has these two wells for the different oceans of the world. But it turns out that making a vacuum partner backfired on him, because it gets his bag completely filled with water, and then it falls over, blocking one of the wells. So that ruins Pinky's plan and floods the lab. But he came pretty close otherwise. Not that the plan even had a chance of success. How are the west-pointing compasses that you can just order? The second story, by Sean McLaughlin, was about Brain trying to track down Snowball by vehicle and train, because Snowball also wants to take over the world. The series tried to make Brain and Pinky seem more believable by establishing that there's other genetically engineered animals. I don't know why Brain thinks Sherlock is an idiot who would trip up everything if he got to Snowball and result in him taking over the world. He'd just stop him, unless he can brainwash him. Eventually, Brain causes Snowball to fall into a river heading downstream, and the story ends there, when it could just get back to that treasure. So I'm supposed to assume Snowball brainwashed these humans into helping him? Because someone told Holmes that the hamster controls him. It's confusing that the show named him Snowball when he's not the color of one. I feel like there really wasn't much of a plot to this story. It's just them following Snowball.